Yours, my friend. Thank you.
Sounds good. Definitely, if you have questions, ask them. Do not hesitate. My name's Joey Blades. I'm from Rochester, New York. Today we're going to do a mid fade. We're going to drop it down. We're going to tailor it to his head. Drop it down around the back. Keep it nice and consistent. Keep the curls on top and make sure it's all blended smoothly from straight to curls. My first tool I'm going to use is going to be the brand new Disruptor. Haven't used it yet. I'm super thrilled. So it's going to be a special moment for all of us, I guess. So first, I'm going to break down my fade. I want to make sure I know what's going to be clipper work and what's going to be scissor work and or clipper over comb. Taking my 1.5 guard, we're going to make our border. So we're going to mid fade. We're thinking bald's going to be right here under the fade point. And our border is going to be just above that. So we keep it nice and dark along the parietal ridge. So 3 things you're going to hear me say, or the 3 main focuses are symmetry, consistency, and balance. They all go together. They coincide together. So symmetry, you want all your guidelines to be symmetrical. You want all your fades to be consistent, and that's going to create balance within the haircut. But right now we're making a guideline. We're using the whole length of the blade, going straight up. We're not rocking, we're not raking, we're just going straight up, making a guideline. My client Max had a haircut about 2 weeks ago. It's not going to be a crazy drastic change, but you can still see the line itself. Get a close up. As you see, we're keeping it dark in here. His head kind of rounds off right here with this bone. We're going to make sure we build off of that. So when I do skin fades, I like to make sure I do less work and it gives me more value within the cut, within my slot. My appointments I book up fairly tight, so I like to make sure everything I do counts. Taking off the 1.5. Now I'm going to go with my closed blade, not zero gap, not nothing, just regular closed blade. I'm going to come through, like I said, for our mid-fade fade point, it's going to be right under the natural fade point that people like to use. Right here, dropped around the ear, come around the back, around the nape, right under the occipital bone, all the way on the other side. Willie, we got any questions?
All good so far. Forgive me if I'm delayed a little because we have this streaming on Instagram, YouTube, and Zoom. So I'm checking like 3 places.
Awesome. The more the merrier. If you have questions, please ask. Right now is when you're going to get the answers. After, might be a little more difficult. So as you see, when I'm making my guideline, I'm using the whole entirety of the blade. Controlling. When I fade, that's when I use corners and I'll rake. But right now, flat to the head, I'm bringing it right to the line I want to create. So if you do something to one side, you must do it to the other. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I want to make sure my fade meets right in the back. Same concept. The best thing about this new Disruptor clipper, it has a Vector version 2 motor, V2. what that does, if the hair is very coarse, it's gonna speed up the RPMs and make sure it cuts through the hair a lot smoother. So it's a great tool to have. Now, like I said, work smarter, not harder, right? Hopefully I said that at first in the beginning of the video. Now, rather than going in at the beginning of the fade, doing my guideline with my trimmer, scraping down, that's going to create more of a harder line of demarcation. We don't want that. We want to make it with our closed blade on our clipper first. Then when we come in with our trimmer, non-zero gap, we're going to make sure it just whips the line right out. So now I'm going to grab my Laser Plus. I have the mini blade on it. We're going to come in, we're going to start balding out the bottom. I like the mini blade for balding because depending on the cut I'm doing, I might be doing more of like a detailed bald area and like a taper, right? I don't want a huge blade, so I got the little one. Just personal preference. A million ways to skin a cat. So when we shave, we always shave up against the grain versus down like this. It's going to get a closer cut. Now, I'm not going up to my original closed blade guideline. If I go up, I make a whole new line with a shorter blade, right? So I'm coming right before I get to my original length, I'm flicking out. We're taking line away as we're balding it. We're eliminating a whole step. I'm not saying if someone makes their guidelines like this with the edger first that it's wrong, but for my system that I've done and used for the past 10 years, this is the most efficient way I have found that I like to do it. At the end of the day, we're artists. It's up to you to create what you want. My hands are the tools. These just make it easier. So another great tool to use while you're cutting, a comb. As you're cutting away, you're combing all the hair you've already cut so you can see your canvas. A clean canvas is going to help you create that consistency, knowing what's cut, what's not. Also in New York State, we're not allowed to use fade brushes. They're considered unsanitary, so we have to have multiple combs and just switch the combs after the cut. But I like it better anyway for cutting. So same thing on this side. I'm balding at the bottom, and as I get up into that closed blade on my clipper, I'm flicking out so I don't create a line of demarcation. How we doing on questions? Well,
The three we've received, you've answered just by doing what you're doing, so we're good.
that's awesome. All right, bang. As I said, this trimmer is not adjusted. It is right out of the box. And now that we've done that, we go back with our disruptor. We know that this is a 1.5 in here, closed 1.5 guard. This is a trimmer and a closed blade clipper. Now we're gonna go open. We're gonna break down this section into smaller subsections and make it easier to just work our way up at the same time as working down without sacrificing this darkness here and the ridge, right?
Joey,
Yeah.
when you were using your trimmer, to do that, how far below your guideline were you stopping? Like roughly a quarter of an inch or eighth of an inch, 16th of an inch?
Like a 16th of an inch. Once
Close as you
you
can get without hitting the line.
exactly,
Okay.
because you still want it to be nice and bald down here, but at the same time, you want to have that transition from the trimmer itself to the closed blade. So if I would have brought it all the way up and I would have went with my open blade now, I would have created a whole nother line that I would have to come back with my closed blade and work it out. So now when I do a mid fade, I like my subsections to be about the length of the blade itself. So we'll call it about a quarter inch. And I'm going to follow the same shape of the guidelines. This is where consistency comes in. Consistent guidelines is going to make the fade balanced. You're going to look at it, it's all going to look the same. It's not going to be sideways and all types of stuff. So about the length of the blade is my next subsection. Symmetry, consistency, and balance are the keys to cutting hair. Unless you're doing a cut that's asymmetrical. You do it to one side, you do it to the other.
Try to have the camera person stay still and you just move the chair.
Okay.
Even if that person has to sit down, whatever the camera is on, that's fine.
So now we got our next subsection, the open blade. The next part, I'm going to close it one notch on the lever, right? I'm not making a crazy difference right now. I'm slowly blending down. So I'm going to go up for the guideline and go down for the blend. One notch close. It's not much of a visible difference, but we feel it. Now I'm going to go halfway. Still just cleaning up the section itself. So when I'm fading, I'm using more of the corners. I'm not using the entirety of the blade because I don't want it to push up the line. I want to use the corners and slowly melt this section into the closed blade. That's the goal. If it looks like I'm using it flat, I'm still using the corner. It's just, I got the clipper looking like it's flat. So now, step down. It's almost closed. One notch above closed. Slowly working the section without creating drastic changes, but if you work for it the right way, it'll come out the right way.
For those of you watching, this is the all new V2 Vector Motor Disruptor by Caliber. It's not even out yet. It's still on pre-order. You can pre-order now and save 20%. It's on sale, 20% off to the first 150 people who pre-order it. I don't know how many are left at that price. There can't be that many left. And they start shipping on October 10th.
So yeah, this is my first time using a vector motor. You know, it's almost incomparable to any other clipper unless the other clipper has a vector motor. It's such a strong, clean cut, but at the same time, you can do soft fading without being too aggressive. It's just, it feels amazing. I love it. The cool thing is this has a 180-minute runtime. So that's going to get you through a good portion of your day before you got to plug it back in. Me personally, I leave them on the dock and they're always 100% charged anyway, but if you go to do a cut and you don't have your dock with you, you're good.
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with a vector motor, what happens is it has 10,000 RPMs, but it's not always running at 10,000 RPMs. It has programming which we've specifically focused on hours and hours of time focused on the programming and balancing the power and torque of this motor. So if you're cutting thicker, coarser hair, it can ramp up the RPMs when needed. And if you're doing detail work like fading and cleanup and line work, it can bring those RPMs back down. So it's of maximum benefit to pretty much any type of cutting.
And that's gonna help out with battery life too, because if your clipper is struggling to mow through something, it works on the battery. So if it could ramp up to get through the hair faster, it's gonna save you 20 minutes on your battery time. Now, it's not an actual number, it's approximate. Another cool thing is when you take a clipper with you, you have no idea how much battery it has. We have this LCD screen that tells you exactly how many minutes you got until it dies on you. And it doesn't die at 20%. It goes all the way to 0. Been tested. Now I've closed the blade and I've been working to just whip out the little bits of the rest of the line. The closed blade is going to help marry everything together. Using the corners, I don't want to create any new lines. I want to take the previous lines I put in out. And the cool thing, like using corners, is called spot fading. So there might be a little piece you want to hit, but it's not these parts. It's right there. You can use your corner and just go in and cut it. Some people have different root movements in their hair, which make it more difficult, but that's why you have to just go all different ways against the grain to make sure you hit all the hairs. Now we got our closed blade, our trimmer, our open blade, and everything above that is a 1.5. So now I'm going to come in with my one guard open, going to be your 1/8. Open first because we're not creating new lines. We're slowly cleaning up this section here. And we're going to make sure we start to fade it without making any crazy drastic differences. You hear it cutting, but you don't see much of a change. That's okay. Why? Because we know it's helping us work this section out. There might be a time you don't hear it cutting. Still doing something. So now I'm going to close it 1 notch. If I like to fade, I like to go open and work through my different lengths of the blade itself within each guard. And if you're wondering why I don't have a neck strip, we use a fresh, clean cape with each client. So there's your answer if anyone was wondering. Now it's halfway closed. Slowly working through this one guard. Because when I come back with my 0 or my 1/16, that's when you're going to start seeing the difference. You're going to see the fade take place. And it's going to help work us through it. You notice I kind of keep my clippers in line with the guideline, right? Versus straight. No. My clipper blade will always follow my guideline. That symmetry within the cut. Close it one more, all the way closed. You're still not seeing any drastic differences, but you can feel it. Less hair is coming off. Comb the hair that's falling off. off your canvas. You want a clean canvas. Any questions, Will?
We're good.
Now I got my 1/16th or your zero guard. Like I said, open, then we're gonna work our way through it. As I'm coming in, I'm not dragging straight up flush to the head because that's gonna make a new line. We're slowly using the corner to just whittle away through that guideline. We want the gradient of our fade to still be dark, but at the same time, we want to maintain the shape of the cut itself with the curls. Same thing, you're not seeing much of a difference until I start working through this guard. Once I get closer to the closed blade of my 0 and 1/16th guards, you're gonna start saying, oh wow, the fade just happened. Then it just happened, we worked for it. Close it. Slowly working for me. I'm gonna close it one more time. We're one notch above a closed blade.
Can you just revisit what you've done so far, please, for those who may be just joining?
Yeah, no problem. So we're doing a mid-skin fade. My first step through the cut was I took my 1.5 guard closed, went around the parietal ridge, right? Kept it nice and dark all the way around the head. Then I took my closed blade on my disruptor and I dropped it down about a finger above the ear where I started it, dropped it down around the occipital bone, and I brought it back up on the other side. Then I balled it out with my trimmer without creating any new lines. Once I did that, I did my open blade and I started working through to melt this to the skin. Then I took my 1 open and started working through to melt the 1.5, the open blade. So now I got my 0 guard. Now I'm doing the same thing. You pretty much do the same thing with each guard. And as long as you do it, you go over it enough times, you're gonna have a fade. A lot of people will see lefties cut hair and it confuses them because they start thinking of how it looked when they are cutting hair. Ignore my hand, ignore everything but the clipper and my wrist. You're not seeing me flick. I'm creating the stroke with my arm itself, right? So we're getting close. You're starting to see it's starting to look like a fade. The line's starting to go away. Great. That means we're doing our job correctly. Each side of the head is different. So, it might be harder to work one side out than the other. That's okay. That's why robots can't take our jobs. Robot can't tell which side of the head is harder, how much more you got to work the fade. I'm going to close my blade. Going to be one of the final steps in the fade portion for the clipper itself. So I'm working this line out. There's still a little reminiscence of it. It's okay. Because I'm going to do what I call the cleanup. I'm going to go with my open blade with no guard and just come through and rake these sections to make sure it's fully blended. Got any questions, Will?
No, you've answered them.
Ooh. Ask more. So now, that stays on the ground. Open it. And we're not going flush to the head. We're coming, I will say, a 45-degree angle. And we're just raking that line away. You don't want to see any drastic change. If you do, that means you're making a new guideline. Go softly. Just the tips of the blade.
Low battery mode.
What?
Said low battery mode. Oh, I'm black.
Do it all the way around the head. Just ensuring that everything is connected, right? Now we're going to take our comb and do some clipper over comb work. We're not digging into the head. We want to maintain the shape, maintain these curls, right? So we're coming right to where the comb leaves the head, and that's where we're cutting. Come in. Just a little bit. You don't have to go and chop a whole bunch. Do a little bit at a time. If you're not comfortable doing clipper over comb, the less you do, the less room you have for error. If you're going in, you're going crazy, chopping chunks of hair out, you're probably going to get a hole within the shape.
Is the comb staying parallel to the head, or are you angling it out?
Fairly parallel. I'm not drastically angling it out. I'm just going where it leaves the head, and then I'm cutting. So yeah, it's parallel, but at the same time, it's not forced in the hair. It's in there softly.
Is your blade closed on the clipper, all the way closed?
Yes. So basically, the stuff that needs to be cut is going to stick out of the comb. It's going to tell you what needs to be cut because this is our length, right? And we softly going so it doesn't stick through the comb. Now the stuff that comes out, that's going to be your line. That's what you need to work. Always comb the hair after and see where it's gonna lay. So you know. That's why I like to do a lot of hair cutting, damp or dry. You're doing it sopping wet, you're not gonna see what it's gonna look like when you're done until you blow dry it. That could lead to problems. Same thing where the comb leaves the head, not digging in. Now I'm gonna come through, scissor over comb and create some softness. When you do scissor over comb, you hold your comb and your scissors together. Wherever your comb goes, your scissor follows. Very important. You're only moving your thumb. Not, we don't got barking dogs on our hands. Only our thumb moves. Like I said, I'm just creating a little bit of softness, nothing drastic going on. Creating softness, I use just the tip of the scissor itself. If I use the whole blade, I'm gonna be taking a lot more hair than I'm bargaining for. Once that's done, we're gonna go in, we're gonna do the edge up. Shape up, edge up, line up, whatever you want to call it. We're cleaning up the hairline of our client. So taking my laser again, we're gonna do what I call the turn. Some other people call it the C cup. We're gonna do whatever we want to call this curvy section. We're gonna clean it up, make it sharp. I like to start in the bottom and just envision 2 points that I'm connecting with the shape of a C. Nice smooth transition, nothing jagged, nothing pointy. Now, if you're just starting out, just learning, you can go in first and make your point here, make your point here, and just connect them. As you go on, the more you do it, you're gonna know you just make one smooth movement. But obviously you gotta practice and you gotta start somewhere. So start off by making a point here, one here, and just connect them together. Now we're gonna do the hairline underneath. We're gonna take our comb. Some people like to use those Velcros. You can, doesn't matter. Hold up the bangs. We're not creating a new hairline, we're just enhancing the one that's naturally there, right? So now we got our straight line here and our curved line there. They connect smoothly. We're gonna go all the way across. If there's no hair there, pretend there is, because we don't want to push up if someone has a widow's peak or like a cowlick, right? We're gonna hold up the hair. You see, I use both hands. It's not easy to do, but if you start it while you're learning, it'll be easier to learn. I feel like using both hands helps me create more of a symmetrical shape on both sides. So I'm not leaning over trying to do something that's not easy. Once that is done, you're going to take our razor, fresh blade every time. We don't reuse blades. They cost 10 cents a piece. It is not worth it to give somebody a skin condition. So when you're using a straight razor, you want to make sure the blade itself goes up and down. It's never going in a circle left to right. It's going up and down. Now, if you see me doing a curve, each stroke is going to be up and down in a curved fashion. Once you slide that blade, you got to cut. So I'm stretching the skin, starting at the bottom of the sideburn. I like to keep it wide. If I did a bald fade, I don't want to go and make this super skinny. I want it nice and wide so we have less regrowth. You don't want to see it edge up with tons of gray growing in the next day. Stretch the skin. Using the corner. Using the whole blade. I like the backhand. That's my personal thing. You don't have to. But I'm going to go through and shave this section now of the edge up backhand. Hold up the hair on the straight line. Bring it to the hairline itself. We're not going over it. We're enhancing what's naturally already there. Same thing with the other side. All right, so now coming in. I like the backhand. We're doing the curve. Same thing with this front. Gonna backhand it. Bring it to the line I created that's already there because it's natural, just sharper. That, my friends, is a mid-skin fade with some curls on top. So I'm gonna use my dryer. So the SAR dryer, it's amazing. Got our LCD display in the background. You can see temperature, you can see speed, and you can change it all with the click of one button, two buttons. Like I said, clean canvas. Now I'm gonna take some sea salt spray because I want to break these curls up. These curls are all stuck together. So I'm gonna go through, wet them up with the sea salt, dry them, not fully dry, with my dryer with the concentrator off on regular heat, but medium wind. Okay. We're at 190 and we're gonna break it down. Just drying it up a little bit, enough to separate these curls. Get some lift. You got to heat up the root in order to get lift and get shape. We style hair by manipulating it with heat and controlling it with product. So we build our style with our top tools and we make sure they stay styled with our product. So you're getting your fingers in there and you're lifting up those roots. We're drying the hair. You want to see separation in those curls? Well, when we add our gel, it's not gonna be a clump of curls, it's gonna be separate, bouncy curls. The reason I take my concentrator off is because I don't want direct powerful heat to bend the hair. I want it to just warm it up. Right, so I got a medium wind. There's that. Now we're gonna take a gel. You can use a mousse, something that's gonna make the curls curlier. In my case, I'm using a gel. I'm gonna rub it in with your hands, right? And slowly work it in. We just glob it in there, it's gonna look super messy and not gonna look like a professional did it. We're massaging that gel into the curls itself. That's why it was important for me to keep this dark. Because I want that to blend into the curls without being bald curl, you know? Create a nice transition in there. We are all done. Willie, do we have any questions?
I don't see any. You've answered the ones we've had. Forgive me. I'm bouncing back and forth between three places. Good stuff.
Yeah.
If you just want to review, Joey, real quick, what you did step by step,
Oh.
and then we'll let you go, man.
Here's our step-by-step game plan. So, looked at our model. We wanted a nice skin fade, but at the same time, wanted to keep it dark. So we did a mid fade. So we went with our 1.5 closed, 1.5 guard, right here on our ridge, and we created that first guideline for our clipper work. Then we came in with our closed blade on our clipper itself, made our bald line. Then we came in with our trimmer and shaved it bald, but we flicked off right before that closed clipper blade. Then we came with our open blade clipper, faded it, came with our 1/8 or our 1, made a new guideline, came in with our 0, faded that, then we came back with the 1, and we faded that to the 1.5, did some clipper overcomb and some scissor overcomb to clean up this ridge here into the dark bulkiness of the hair. Then we blow dried it with our Kassar dryer, and we added a little bit of product to keep these curls nice and healthy looking. There we go. Rocking.